I'm back talking last week in wrestling. Last week, I came back to watching full wrestling shows for the first time in over 3 years. And I think coming back for the first time made me more optimistic than I was anticipating. Trying to come in biased, trying to come in unbiased. This week, however, kind of proved to me all of the things I didn't like about modern wrestling 3 years ago remain the same, if not worse. Though I'm trying to give them benefit of the doubt because there's going through COVID, there's lack of crowd still in most shows, so that is one thing. This week, unlike last week, I'm going to start with the unwatchables. These are the F minuses. The shows that fall into this category, I will likely stop watching and then I will skim them every week quickly because I am not wasting my time on them. Very quick skim just to see if I see a few interesting things. If I ever see a few interesting things, I'll put them in the official watch category. First one, NWA Power. Gave it a shot. Pretty stale, boring. Nobody I connected with. Now I skimmed this for the most part. I watched about 10 minutes overall. The theme song, the Dawkins thing, by far the best part of NWA Power. And that was about it. ROH doing nothing for me. Don't see ROH getting ever on the watch list. That's a dead wrestling company as far as I'm concerned. I talked about New Japan last week and how just wasn't working for me. It's just matches with no meaning most of the time, multiple person matches. I did watch the Kota Ibushi Jeff Cobb match, like I talked about last week. They made me want to see their match, so I watched their match, and it was a good match. It felt a little long, even though it was like less than 15 minutes, but yeah. And New Japan has a new champion, Shingo, but I didn't care. Like I haven't been watching, and they didn't make me care in 2 weeks, unfortunately. So right now, New Japan remains on my F minus unwatchable list. And there's a couple more that might get added after this week. We're gonna start with Impact, which I gave an F to. Look, Impact is just truly a broke bitch company. They come off like a high school play, like I said last week. The episode this week started with one of the worst people on the mic I've ever seen. That is Tony Khan. Nobody needs to hear Tony Khan on a microphone. Awkward is the biggest word to describe Tony Khan on a microphone. And it's not like Callis and Diamore were bringing a lot to that first segment either. It's just who cares about these three? Sorry. The whole person in charge character got still so long ago in wrestling, and these three ain't bringing it back. Callis is good on the mic, but I guess it did what it was supposed to do. It basically got Sammy Callahan over as the crazy person nobody wants on their company. We'll get more to that later. I was honestly kind of hoping they were going to do a three-way Omega and Moose and Callahan. That way, Moose or Callahan could pin each other, and then we don't have to deal with Omega and Impact. I don't see the point of this AEW crossover to Impact because their ratings suck. AEW has not helped Impact's ratings. Omega is not a draw. I hate to break it to the IWC. That's what I've always seen. I'm trying to see the appeal of Omega. Sometimes I see a spark there. Most of the time, he just looks like the most overrated wrestler in the history of hardcore wrestling fans. I like the Macklin promos. That was one of the only things I liked about Impact Wrestling. He was intense. Yeah, Impact this week, just shit. It was awful. Broke bitch company. like it's a lifeless product, and I'm not going to keep watching it because the pay-per-view Against All Odds did nothing for me either. I'll go through it quickly because it was a waste of time. I came in with no interest. I left feeling empty. Started with the street fight, the Good Brothers versus Callahan and Tommy Dreamer. Callahan and Dreamer get the win. Continues to put Callahan over. That's the one thing I guess Impact is doing, is getting Callahan over in his character. So I will give props to that. Joe Doring and Kojima did absolutely nothing for me. Didn't care. 5-way X Division match: Ace Austin versus Chris Bay versus some guy I don't know versus Petey Williams versus Trey Miguel. It was kind of a clusterfuck. Yeah, some Fulton guy comes out, kills everybody in the match. The match gets thrown out. So that match was a waste of time. You guys, if you watched last week, you know how I feel about my time being wasted in wrestling. There was one spot I did like in that match, and that was when Petey Williams and Trey Miguel each had a submission on someone else, and they were staring at each other. That was a good spot. That was the only cool part of the match to me, because I've never really seen anything like that or similar to that in a long while. W. Morrison versus Rich Swann. I couldn't even remember who W. Morrison used to be in WWE. His face was familiar. Couldn't remember his name. He was Big Cass. Blah blah blah. The match. I mean, it did what it is. They're pushing him, Big Cass, and then I mean, Rich Swann just looks like a guy that keeps losing big matches. That's what I got from Big Rich Swann so far in 2 weeks. Dashwood versus Jordan Grace. Couldn't get into it. Knockouts tag. The Susan character, I guess she's a Karen. Anyway, her and Kimberly take on Fire and Flavor. Fly and Flavor win. I do like Fire and Flavor. I kind of like the women on Impact. They have personalities most of the time. The guys do nothing for me. The next match, tag team titles, Decay versus Rhino and his partner. Not really learning these guys because they haven't made me care. It's mediocre wrestling at best. The main event, Moose versus Omega. It was a foregone conclusion Omega's going to win. Because look, Omega's not going to lose a match to an Impact wrestler. So that's why if Omega's going to lose his title in a prominent way, it's going to be on AEW first, you would think. That's why I was kind of hoping it was a 3-way so he could lose without having to lose. Instead, he has to cheat to win with the Bucks to beat Moose. Moose should be a much bigger star than he has become. He's been around for a long while now. He's wasting away in Impact. I don't know if that's his fault. I don't know if nobody wants him in another company for whatever reason. Bottom line is, Impact Wrestling gets an F. Sucked. Probably will be in the unwatchable list next week. And Raw's ticking that way too. Raw in the 4th spot this week. I gave it an F+ to Raw. Why the plus sign? Mostly just because of the rankings, honestly, to give it 4th place. But it was basically F as well. Because there's very, very little pros from Raw this week. That tag division match at the beginning of Raw that took a long time, that nobody gave a shit about, just showed how terrible the tag team division on Raw is. And Fanguy, if he was watching this, he was talking to me right now about this, like he does on Who Really Won the Wrestling War. The finale of 1989 coming on Wednesday. You get to see all of our awards for the best of 1989 and see if WCW can pull off a win in 1989 to be the most entertaining company of 1989. Before that, we'll go on a bit of a hiatus. But anyways, if Fanguy was here, he would hate how these single superstars are tag teams. I agree. We've seen so many contract signings over the years. Who really gives a shit about that? I did not care about Lashley and McIntyre's contract signing. Sure, nobody did. The women's division also pretty damn bad. The story with Charlotte and Rhea Ripley and Nikki Cross. They did not make me care in these 2 weeks about their women's division on Raw. Not feeling it. Like, honestly, one of the only highlights was the funny thing where Miz is in a wheelchair, Morrison's pushing him. He's about to do his entrance, Morrison's entrance where it goes to slow-mo. He lets go of the wheelchair, Miz, and Miz starts rolling down the ramp. That was funny, at least. I also liked MVP's talk with Kofi Kingston. New Day is still as hell. They've been around a long time now. Kofi needs a change. But I don't know if that's what they're go with the story with MVP. They should, though, but it's the WWE, so probably not. And then we ended with that doll storyline. I probably don't hate the doll storyline as much as everybody else, but it's still not good television. Because of the whole concept and the whole reason for the story is that the doll is mad because Shayna Baszler just called him a doll, or her a doll, it a doll. I feel stupid just describing the storyline. So yeah, Raw sucked. I was trying to give Raw a chance until the next pay-per-view, or even after the next pay-per-view, but it might fall on the unwatchable list before then. Brings me to SmackDown, which remains in third place. It also dropped this week. Let's see. Last week I gave SmackDown a D+. This week I dropped it down to a D. It was more of the same on SmackDown. Like I said last week, the best part of SmackDown remains the Roman Reigns story and the Usos and that whole family dynamic. I'm liking Jimmy as the rebel of the family. But I don't know if I trust WWE to tell a complete story with these guys. I don't know if in the end if everybody's going to be better off. Probably, because I mean the Usos have been around a while. They got still at times too, so it's doing what it needs to do. I'm glad that Cesaro's getting a push right now. It seems like another guy that kind of deserves one. He's feuding with Rollins. But yeah, the main story is the only good part of SmackDown still. It's like everything else is pretty boring. They have yet to make me care about Kevin Owens or Apollo or Big E. And then this women's title. Like, what is this build? Is Bailey laughing? And now she's has Seth Rollins on her talk show and they just awkwardly laugh. Who thinks this is good television? It's embarrassingly bad. And it's a waste of a story for Bianca Belair and Bailey, who could probably have a better feud than this feud that makes no sense. It's just Bailey laughing. Who gives a fuck? And then the Roman Reigns and Rey Mysterio match. I mean, Roman keeps beating Rey and Dominic's ass. Like, that match is a foregone conclusion, so it does nothing for me. Don't think it does anything for the tag titles either. So, as a whole, SmackDown went down to. Number 2 is AEW, dropping from the 1 spot last week. I gave it a solid C last week. That wore off to a D+. And I kind of feel like the odd one out here. I feel like a lot of people liked this week more than last week. Maybe it's just because that was my first time, my second time ever really watching a full Dynamite episode. I like this Jade Cargill. She has a good look, has a manager, has a catchphrase. She could be a star, honestly. Like Ethan Page, he's pretty entertaining. Dark Order, hate it. Pretty bad stuff. Don't get it. I also, my biggest pet peeve with AEW are these fucking records. Why are they giving people's records out? Who wants to see somebody that's 4-11 have a match? Even somebody that's like 9-13. There was this 9-13 tag team on one of the dark elevation shows. There was a 16-24 singles wrestler. The, I don't like Tony Khan. He doesn't get it. He does not get it. And you wanted to make it look like a real combat sport, but nobody who is 16-24 is going to be fighting in a UFC card. And I don't know. We'll get to more of that in a second, because we also have this QT Marshall who's 17-1, but he's not in the title picture. So what are the point of these records? There isn't one. They're illogical and they're dumb. And if somebody turns on an episode of this and somebody has a losing record, they're going to change the channel, because who the fuck cares about this guy? It's stupid. The record thing is stupid. The Christian Matt Hardy feud ain't working for me. Yeah, that's really all I'll say. Young Bucks matches. I talked about it last week. They are a fast forward material for me. Fast forward the Young Bucks, because I don't want to see them suck at selling and just suck the energy out of a match for me to know. The Pinnacle, this is my first time seeing them, and they just came off like a group of lower mid-carders to me. Didn't like their promos much, didn't really see star power with them. That was a big reason why my grade for AEW went down. It's just, there was just a lot that I don't care about. They did not have Andrade on the show. He debuts last week. He's a big debut. This week he's not on. Talk about a momentum killer. Talk about someone that doesn't know storytelling, Tony Khan. We got Arn Anderson's son, Brock Anderson. I'll give it a shot. I kind of liked QT Marshall's promo there. I liked him calling out the nepotism. I mean, the nepotism runs this company. Tony Nepotism Khan, all his jobs that he's not very good at, like the Jaguars and Fulham. I liked how they showed the Pinnacle arrive in a limo and then the Inner Circle destroys it later in the show. That was continuity. So I'll give him some point for that. And then it was just Jungle Boy's push is interesting. Kenny Omega says he's the best on the mic. He's not really that great on the mic at all, for being honest with ourselves. So AEW this week, not a whole lot worked for me. That's why I fell to a D+. And I'm going to need to see more from this company, because I saw a lot of the bad things that I thought I was going to see last week. But I'm giving it a shot. But a lot of the pro wrestling this week was just the same crap. It's just not good television. I think they all forget this is still a TV show. And you got to make people at least care, the bare minimum. Number one, by far, for me, was NXT. They were a C- last week. I brought them up to a C. Would have brought them up higher. We'll talk about why I didn't. And it's because I enjoyed the TV show more than I enjoyed the pay-per-view or the event, the TakeOver. The TakeOver wasn't that good, in my opinion. TV show, though, I had very little cons on the TV show. Well, actually, I have one big con, though, overall on NXT. I saw Austin Theory on NXT. I remember Austin Theory long ago on YouTube when he was young as hell wrestling. So it's cool to see him on a bigger company. He lost to some generic guy with a beard, though. That sucked. LA Knight, the Imagine vignette for why he should be the $1 Million champion. Great vignette. Great stuff there for LA Knight. Definitely one of my favorites since I've returned to watching these last 2 weeks is LA Knight. And this whole $1 Million storyline. I like this Isaiah Scott, I think his name is. I can't read my handwriting. Like him, what I see for him so far. There's some like Jericho, prime, not current Jericho. There's some prime Jericho to him in his matches that he does little things in matches that I've seen so far anyway that make him entertaining. I like that kind of stuff. But my biggest con with NXT overall is the main event picture. Whew, I don't like any of it. I don't like any of these guys. And the one guy I did like, he took the fall at the fucking event. I'm giving Karrion Kross a chance, though. He looks the part. But overall, I was entertained by the TV show. Talk about the event TakeOver now. Bronson Reed and MSK versus a tag team's name I probably won't be able to pronounce. Legado del Fantasma. Y'all know I don't like six-man tag matches because usually they mean nothing, but this meant something because it was for two titles, the tag titles and the North American title. And I think this was just done the right way. It's one of the better six-man tag matches I've seen in possibly ever, honestly. I don't like multiple man tag matches. Mercedes Martinez and I don't know how to pronounce her name either. Ziali. The match itself didn't do much for me. I liked the Mei Ying stuff afterwards, though. That could be an interesting character. Like all the tie-ins. So that was cool, at least. We had the $1 Million Ladder match. I was really looking forward to this match. Probably the most, like I said, LA Knight is who has entertained me the most. But as the ladder matches go, it was pretty damn mediocre. It was kind of just a lot of spots just to have ladder spots. But it accomplished what it needed to accomplish, and that is making LA Knight the $1 Million champion, presented to him by the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase. The women's championship match, Raquel Gonzalez versus Ember Moon. It was a good enough match. They're really pushing this Gonzalez woman. NXT championship, like I said, it's just five guys that I don't really care about, don't really like even. The match itself was pretty much just chaotic. There was some parts of the match that worked. It was pretty much a foregone conclusion that Karrion Kross was going to win this match. And of course, the one person that I'm kind of interested in seeing have a singles run is Kyle O'Reilly, and he's the guy that takes the pin. They really push this Pete Dunne guy, and I don't see it. Don't see it in this kid. I don't think he's gonna enthrall people outside of the hardcore wrestling fans that love boring people. Look, the main event scene on NXT is just five pretty boring, bland white guys. Ain't doing it for me, but overall, the undercard is entertaining enough, and the TV show is entertaining enough that it wins my week at the top of the rankings. NXT gets a solid C. Will it stay there? AEW couldn't. We'll see. I'm gonna be traveling. Gonna keep trying to do this. I'll probably miss at least 1 week though over the next 2 weeks. But for now, NXT, the honestly the only watchable wrestling show last week.